Hello everyone and welcome to this month's masterclass, which is all about discarding losers. So hopefully this should be something that you're reasonably comfortable with, although there are some things that people consistently find very difficult to spot, which is why I think it's so important to talk about. But if you're a bit newer to things and you're not sure what I'm referring to here, then you should find this masterclass really useful. The first thing we need to do is we need to go through what a loser is, and in order to do that we need to understand really clearly how we count our losers, which is something we should be doing on every suit contract hand anyway, so hopefully this should just be a reminder, but it's something that's really worth going through just in case. After that we can talk about what discarding losers is, what it involves, and the forms it might take. And finally, we need to talk about extra winners, which are necessary for doing this discarding, but might not be a term you're familiar with, so we'll talk through it all. First, let's go through how to count losers. So it should be something you're already doing on every hand where you're declaring a suit contract. If it's not, start doing it. It's going to really improve your declarer play. I always say that if you don't count your tricks at the beginning of a hand and you don't give yourself a chance to plan the play, then it's a bit like setting off driving to somewhere you've never been before without looking at a map. You might get there, but if you do, you get there by accident. So really important to be very intentional about it and make sure that you're comfortable with the process. A lot of people find this a little bit mystifying. But it's actually, once you get used to doing it, should come quite naturally, and should also be something that gets faster the more you practice. So just in case you've forgotten, let's talk about it. The first step is to decide which of your hand and the dummy is going to be the base hand. So the point where we're deciding this is after the dummy comes down, you can see the lead and you can see your hand and the base hand. Usually, your hand and the dummy. Usually you will choose the base hand to be the one with the longer trumps. If there is no hand that has longer trumps than the other, then usually you pick the hand with the longer side suit. And if you're still not sure, then what you can do is you can count losers in both directions. This will become apparent as we talk about the rest of the process, and decide which one feels more intuitive or makes more sense on that particular hand. Okay, so once you've got your base hand, you look at the length, we're going to call it C, the length of each of the suits in the base hand. So for example, if you have 4 spades in the base hand and you have 3 diamonds in the base hand, then C for spades is 4, and C for diamonds is 3. Sounds complicated, it's really not when you describe it like that. So the point of doing that is to limit the number of possible losers that you have in the suit. That doesn't mean that they're already losers, it's just talking about how many times you need to go through and decide whether each card is a loser. So that means you need to go through each card, and you should always start by looking at the highest card that you have in the suit first. And that might be in your hand or in the dummy. So check both and look at the highest card you have. Is it going to win the trick or is it going to lose the trick? Then you look at the second highest card that you have in that suit. Again, maybe in your hand, maybe in the dummy. And will that win the trick? Will it lose the trick? For every winner, you don't add a loser. For every loser, you add a loser. And you just continue that and you do it C times. So you use this C as a limiter. Then once you've done the spades, look at the next suit. You look at hearts, then you look at diamonds, then you look at clubs, or whatever order it is in your hand, whatever you find easiest. Now let's look at an example. These things are always a bit easier to understand when you have an example. So on this hand, we're in 4 hearts. We've got a lovely big trump fit, so we're not too worried about the trumps, and we need to count our losers. So first of all, we need to decide which is the base hand, which of course is our own hand, because that's the one with the longer trumps. So declaring hand is the base hand. Now we need to go through each suit in turn and decide how long C is. So in spades, we have 1 spade in our base hand, 6 hearts, 3 diamonds and 3 clubs. So that's all it is. 1, 6, 3, 3. Now we need to decide, therefore, how many losers we have in each suit. So for spades, C is only 1, so we only need to look at the suit once. The highest card we have in the suit is the ace. It doesn't matter that it's in the dummy. That's going to win the trick, so we have no losers in spades. After that we stop, because we already know for the length of C how many losers we have. Now we look at hearts, and we've got 6 hearts. So then we can play the top hearts, and when we don't have any hearts, when the opponents don't have any hearts left, it won't matter that we've only got the 2 at the end. The opponent's going to run out of hearts long before then. So no losers in hearts either. Then we look at the diamonds, and the highest card we have in the suit is the queen. When we play the queen, that's just going to lose the trick. So we've got a loser there. Then we play the 6, which is the next highest card. We have to continue for length C being 3. And the 6 is also going to lose the trick. And then the third time to fulfill C, the 5 is also going to lose the trick. So that gives us 3 losers in diamonds. And finally, in clubs, the highest card we have in the suit is the king. That will lose the trick. However, once that's lost to the ace, the queen, which is our second highest card, will then be the highest card in the suit. So that will win the trick. And then after that, the 7 is the next highest card, and that will lose the trick as well. So that means we have 2 losers in clubs. Though we're not imagining that we're doing anything fancy here, we're simply playing the highest card followed by the second highest card. And obviously, realistically, you might choose to do something else, but that all has to come into the plan. So you might look at these diamonds and think, but I can ruff the second 2 diamonds, so why do those count as losers? The fact is you haven't done it yet, so it needs to be part of your plan. It's really common to assume that everything's okay because you're just going to ruff things, and then you use your trumps and you get a bit overexcited about using your trumps elsewhere. You draw a couple of extra rounds just for fun, and then all of a sudden you realise you don't have enough trumps to do your ruffing. Obviously on this hand it's very, very unlikely because you have such a huge trump fit, but just good to get into the habit of counting correctly so that you can make your plan accordingly. So this plan that we're making, of course we're planning to ruff 2 diamonds. We can't avoid losing 1, but we can ruff the second 2. And similarly in clubs, we're always going to lose to the ace, but we can actually discard the 3rd round of clubs onto an extra winner in the dummy. And that winner is in spades. So that's how we make our plan. We pinpoint where the losers are, and then we decide how to get rid of them. So let's look again at this phrase, discard a club on the extra spade winner, because there's some jargon going on here that we need to be really comfortable with. Discarding a loser. In order to discard a loser, you need to have extra winners. And an extra winner is specifically a winner that's not already being used to cover a card in the same suit. So in the example that we looked at above, we had ace king to 4 in the dummy and a singleton in our hand. The king is an extra winner because C in spades is only 1. So you're using your ace to cover the 6, but because C is only 1, you don't need to use any more spades, you don't need to think about any more rounds of spades. So this king, which is obviously able to win a trick, is not actually doing anything useful. So we can instead use it to discard a loser from a different suit. Now, extra winners are normally in the shorthand, which means that you get to discard a loser from the base hand. This is something you will see a lot. This is something that we went through in our example. But let's make it really clear how that works. We play this king in spades, and we discard a club loser. Now, of course, you need to void yourself with the ace of spades first, but that's fine. You void yourself with the ace, and then when you play the king of spades, you throw away a little club. By doing that, you reduce C in clubs from 3 to 2, because remember, we decided declarer was the base hand. So at the point when we counted initially, we had a length C of 3, but by throwing away the 2, we then only have a length of 2 in clubs. So that means our number of possible losers has been reduced. So the way the clubs get played, the king loses, then the queen wins, and then because you don't have any clubs left in the base hand, you only have to lose to that ace. So that's one loser where you initially actually had 2. You can actually do it the other way around. So this is the thing that people find really, really difficult to spot, because it involves planning an extra step that hasn't happened yet. So instead you discard a card from the shorthand on an extra winner that's in the base hand. Let's look at an example. So here we have the extra winner in spades. It's the same suit combination. And again, we want to discard a little club. But actually, we're not shortening in the base hand. We still have this C of 3 in clubs. But instead, what we're doing is we're creating a situation where we can ruff in the shorthand. Because after 2 rounds of the suit, once dummy doesn't have any more clubs, we can then ruff that 3rd round. So it's not really about the discarding initially. The discarding just enables a later ruff. So that's why these are so difficult to spot, because there's an extra step in between. When you're doing this, you always need to check whether it's safe to draw trumps. You might not be able to draw any trumps. You might only be able to draw some of the trumps. You might be able to safely draw all of the trumps, which is the case in the example today, because you have 9 trumps and you only need to ruff one thing, so you'll be okay. But that's not always the case. Now, extra winners, it's a term we now understand. So let's talk about what these are, what they look like. So far, we've only seen examples where the extra winner or winners that we need are already there. So here we had this extra king. We didn't have to do anything for this king to be an extra winner. It was already there. It was already able to provide a discard. However, sometimes you have to establish those extra winners first. So look at this example. At the moment, we don't actually have any winners in spades. Similarly, it's a bit similar to when you count winners and no trumps. They only count if you have the top card in the suit, which we don't. So first of all, we're going to have to knock out the ace of spades, and then we'll have 3 extra winners in the suit, because we won't have to follow suit to the following rounds. Another thing to watch out for is that it might be that the extra winner is a possibility, but it's not a certainty. So in a situation like this, we've got a finesse that we could take, and on the surface it seems a bit strange to take a finesse, because if it loses, we're just creating a loser in a suit where we don't have one. Remember, counting here, we would think, okay, C is 1, and we have the highest card in the suit, so we don't have any spade losers. So we don't want to create a loser where we don't already have one. However, if we take a successful finesse, if we play a spade up to the queen, then maybe the queen will provide us with the way of covering the 6, and the ace will then be able to provide a discard for a different suit. You have to be aware that if the finesse fails, you will not get your extra winner. Usually this isn't too much of a problem, because you can instead use the ace to discard the thing you wanted to discard, so you kind of swap a trick. But there are definitely cases where you are taking a real risk of just losing a trick that you currently have. So you have to choose the right time to do it. Okay, now that you're experts on discarding losers, head to the tournament and try the practice hands, and I will see you after each deal.